in with the table. I'll let Larry do the introduction and go from there.
Okay, let me hear that. We can get the three candidates, our Sheriff Miller and Sheriff Larry. Come on forward. Grab a seat, whichever one you want. There's a trick. Oh, take them in order. I want to thank you guys for coming. Just for putting yourselves out there running for an elected office is, you know, I really hold you guys to a higher level and everything, because that's a challenge. It's a lot of work to try to make everybody happy, and we usually have a saying, if you make everybody happy, you must be doing something wrong, because somebody's not happy. Anyway, I do appreciate them, and guys, if you would, just give them another round of applause. I have the questions. Nobody, y'all never seen these, right?
Oh, yeah, he's going to.
I drew them up last night, so I don't know when I sent them to him. Must have been in my sleep. So anyway, we'll try to get into that. I wanted to go ahead and preface everything. We're videoing. We have several members that were not able to attend this meeting and everything, so hopefully that's okay. It's public forum anyhow. We just want to let you know that it is being videoed and maintaining it there. Okay, we have Mark. That's going to be my timekeeper. We're going to allow 2 minutes to a question. He's going to raise a yellow flag, or yellow piece of paper, when you've got about 15 seconds left, and then a blue one. I ran off, I was in a hurry, didn't grab my red paper, so blue means stop. It doesn't mean get up and leave. You got to stay here. Go ahead and, if we could, go ahead and kind of keep those time frames, because I've got about 10 questions here and everything, so we want to try to cover as much as possible. The way I'm going to do it, I'm going to start with the first question. I'll just start with Sheriff Miller right now, and then move forward, and then Sam, I'll get to you next, and you'll start the next question first. That way we're not, oh yeah, I agree with him, and then we don't even know what you agree with. About 2 minutes, like I said. Just for time's sake and everything, if something is said or you feel like you've not completed one of the questions, you want to go back, if you would, go ahead and kind of address the question at hand, and then if you want to go ahead and readdress something that you want to clarify or cover from the previous comment or statement that one of y'all made or anything. I want it to be a nice, friendly atmosphere, so the attendants, if you guys think of a question, please write it down. That way you won't forget it, because when I get to the end, we'll open it up to the audience. If there's a question that you want to ask, make sure you have it ready to available instead of, oh, what was that? You know, if he said something and you got off track. So, I'm going to give Sheriff Miller the microphone first. If you would, please use the microphone so everybody can hear. And we'll get started. So the first one's pretty easy. Hopefully, you guys know who you are. I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself and give a brief description of your experiences and qualifications.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Philip Miller. I am the current sheriff, and I'm running for re-election. Just about myself, I grew up here in White County my whole life. Went to school at Judson High School, and then began my adult life in public service, first with the volunteer fire department, then as an EMT on ambulance service, and then for the past 24 years I've been in law enforcement here in White County. And I think that is what stands out to most folks, is what kind of experience do you have? You know, how do I know that you can get the job done? And I think with 24 years of experience here in White County, I know White County. I know the needs of White County. I've spent many years working with our quorum court members, with our other elected officials to make sure that we meet the needs of the department and the county. And so that's what I think is the best qualification, is just that experience. And I'd appreciate the time to be here today and answer your questions.
Thank you.
My name is Sam Jeffrey. Thanks for the invitation to be here. I'm really happy to be here and talk to you guys about these important issues. So, my wife grew up here in Baldwin. That's how we ended up getting back here. I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. and was a federal agent for about 10 years. I was a special agent with CIA, worked counter narcotics, worked against the drug cartels where the cartels are. Did that overseas, worked in 15 different states with local agencies here in the United States. Also did counterterrorism. And the bulk of my time as a special agent, I was an interrogator, which is one of the roles I play. Is currently an instructor with the University of Arkansas Criminal Justice Institute. I teach interrogation there. I teach several different courses, defensive tactics, some counterterrorism stuff as well. And I'm the current director of the Criminal Justice Program. Sorry, got out of order there. We moved back to Searcy in 2015. I'm the director of the Criminal Justice Program over at Harding. I'm also an auxiliary officer with Searcy PD and have been for about the last 3 years, and just help them out with when they ask. And so it's been a pleasure running, and this is not something I anticipated. I didn't grow up thinking I'm someday going to be the sheriff of White County, but when we were here, in the roles that I've had, I interact with law enforcement throughout the county, and we just started seeing that there's some significant gaps, there's some significant shortfalls, there's issues that are getting out of hand or have gotten out of hand, and when you have, we're all excited about the interstate coming through, but the reality is there's a lot of criminal stuff that's going to come in when that interstate comes in as well. We'll be on the fastest smuggling route between Dallas and Chicago, and so if we've got a short window in which we can nip that in the bud. And if we don't, it has the ability to outstrip our resources. So I'm happy to be here, talk to you guys about these issues.
Okay, I'm Larry House, a longtime resident of White County. Been married to my wife, Lucretia, for 33 years. We have 2 beautiful children. I have a great family. I'm overly blessed. I spent the majority of my life in the business sector providing a service for different companies. Been in law enforcement 5, 6 years roughly. Been the chief of police at Beaumont for the past 2 years, and I'm not a politician. I'm not a certified lecturer, anything like that. I'm a law enforcement officer, passionate about enforcing laws and protecting the citizens of where I serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Second question, Sam, we'll start with you. Sure. Oh, is it okay to call you by first name? I just said you. Tell us your greatest weakness and one of your greatest strengths.
All right, greatest weakness, I guess it's my wife. She gets me. As far as professionally, it's communication is so key, and one of the things I've really been working on just throughout my life is being clear in what we're putting out there. And this is in every role, having worked around the globe, worked with different agencies. The ability to communicate between agencies is something that is essential, and it's not something that it's something I had to grow into. And so that's certainly been something I've had to work on. As far as strengths, I'm an innovator. I look at the issues here. So many of the problems that we have in this county are because things are being done the way they've always been done. There's not been any change. The law enforcement package that we're rolling out with tonight is the same one we rolled out with back in the 1980s. The idea that in 2022 there's no computers in the car. Those are things that have real world impact. And so having somebody from the outside come in and look at the same problem set but with an outside view, I think that's probably one of the greatest strengths that I bring to this.
Thank you. Larry?
I've been sitting here this whole time trying to figure out what my greatest weakness is. And the only thing I can think of is chocolate milk. I'm passionate about chocolate milk too. You can probably tell by looking at me. My greatest strength, I believe, is my faith, my passion, my dedication, my family. And not necessarily all in that order, except on faith. I have an ability to motivate, lead, guide, and direct people to accomplish the mission at hand, and that's what I look forward to doing.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
So my greatest weakness and my greatest strength, I think, kind of go together. And honestly, one of my weaknesses is that I'm not a confrontational person. I'm not an in-your-face, confrontational, point my finger. That's just not who I am. But I think one of my greatest strengths comes from that is I try very hard to work with everyone around. I try to be a team player and a team builder, and I think that's what one of the things that I have accomplished in the last 3.5 years as a sheriff, and that is building a team, building a core that my administrative folks know they can come in, and I do not expect them to be yes men. I do not expect them to only tell me what I want to hear. I expect them to come in and say, Sheriff, we need to shut the door because I'm just going to tell you how it is. And I want that from them because that helps build ownership in what we have. You know, in 2001, when I joined the sheriff's office as auxiliary, we had 3 people patrolling the streets of White County at a time. And if somebody was sick, if somebody was on vacation, or we were transporting out of the county somewhere, there was 2 of us. And filled in many shifts for officers that were taken off. Well, fast forward 21 years, we have 6 per shift, plus a lieutenant. And we've gained a multitude of things in that 20 years that help us do our job better and more efficient. One of the things that we're working on as a team together right now is a new communication system that involves not only the sheriff's office, but our 911 system. It involves all of those partners that work within that system, as well as computers. You know, we're in the depths of a program to bring computers into our cars, but that's got to be managed properly. You know, a $700,000 project doesn't just happen because I say I want it. There's lots of buy-in, there's lots of stuff.
Thank you. Larry, we'll start with you on this one. This is probably going to be the last of the easy ones. So, why do you feel that you're the best person for this job?
I think I'm the best person for the job because of my experience in business and working people for the majority of my life, providing service. Also, I know it sounds crazy, but just the passion and dedication that I have to serving the people and providing the service. That's basically it.
Okay. Sure.
So, why do I think I'm the best candidate? I think 24 years of law enforcement experience right here in White County, to me, speaks volumes of what I've learned, what I know about White County. You know, I've dedicated my whole life, adult life, to serving the citizens in one various form or another, through the fire department, through my work as an EMT, and through law enforcement. A lot of my strength is drawn from my church family, and my family here that I have, my wife, my kids, and an extended family that extends really throughout White County, not just blood family, but those connections that I've made through that public service the past 24 years. It's kind of funny, when my wife and I got married, she found out that I have about 15 moms across the county, because there's several ladies that I respect and I look up to, and that I refer to as mom in a caring manner, and they refer to me as their son, and I think that's a lot of strength that I have in that.
So I think the experience that I have certainly plays into why I think I'm the best candidate. The idea of being able to have experience going after criminals in an offensive way, to take the fight to the people who are bringing damage to the county. I think both the other candidates are good men. I don't have a problem with either one of them personally. But I do think that where we're at is where they brought us. The reality is, I mean, I'm all for computers being in the car, but Sheriff Miller has been in charge of the budget for 9 years now. And so I recognize things can't happen at the drop of a hat, but as Chief Deputy and now Sheriff, he's had the opportunity for 9 years to make that a priority. Communication has to happen. We've got to start reaching out into the communities. We've got to start working, as the sheriff's department, we have to start working with the local municipalities who at this particular point feel abandoned. And I would encourage you, if you know somebody in law enforcement in White County, reach out to them. Reach out to them. They don't have to know me. They don't have to be affiliated with me at all. Ask them what they think. And so I think the ability to look at things from a new perspective and then aggressively go after the problems is what makes me the best candidate.
Sheriff Miller, please start with you on this one. What do you feel is the greatest challenge for the White County Sheriff's Office, and how do you plan on attacking that?
The greatest challenge for the White County Sheriff's Office is something that's shared challenge with every law enforcement agency in the county, in the state, and across the nation. And that's recruitment and retention of good officers. You know, that's not just simply how much money we can pay. We have a situation that's developed over the last few years especially with how people see law enforcement, how people respond to law enforcement. And when you get that kind of thing, coupled with a system that we have with our state penal system that is a catch and release program, officers get discouraged. Officers burn out. You know, you ask across the county, across the state, how many officers have a second job because of the income. And so I think that's the biggest challenge to law enforcement in White County and in law enforcement across the state is just developing those things that we can do to recruit and retain the top quality applicants. You know, we're fortunate that the state legislature this year is providing a one-time stipend to law enforcement that came from lots and lots of hours, lots of closed-door meetings to make that happen. I've worked with the quorum court. You know, last year they provided raises to our detention staff and our law enforcement officers for the White County Sheriff's Office, and that all goes into it. And having a good working relationship with the men and women that you serve alongside of, and knowing that you're going to be there, you're going to have their back. And I think that's what my folks know. Number one about me is anywhere I go, anytime I get a chance to speak, I tell them the same thing. We've got the best in the business as far as deputies in White County.
Thank you. Okay.
Sure. So a point of agreement with Sheriff Miller here. We really do have the best deputies out there. They put their lives on the line day in and day out, and they should be applauded. They should be backed up fully every chance we get. So I completely agree with that. But I would point out two other things. I think the biggest issue that White County law enforcement has is a leadership crisis. The reality is there is no communication as we get outside the city. As we get outside Searcy, if you know somebody, just ask them in law enforcement. The reality is that the police chiefs in the county used to meet regularly. Those meetings have been canceled. The jail was shut down for the large portion of COVID. Now that it's back open, we've got, as of this morning, we have 306 inmates in a jail that had about 3 jailers per shift. 3 to 100 is not even a good stat at a junior high, much less a jail. And so those are real issues, but communication has to happen. Last weekend, I was in Georgetown, and they can't communicate. The radios just drop off. And they've got a radio repeater in place, they're ready to use it, but there's no coordination. And the new 911 system, which is state mandated, they're doing it across the state, is hopefully going to fix that. But we've got some real issues, but it's going to take leadership, not just looking out for the deputies, but looking out for White County law enforcement. I would want to bring on a grant writer, somebody who writes grants not just to help the sheriff's office, but to help different municipalities, because a rising tide floats all boats. I would want to make sure that White County knows, not just the sheriff's office, but White County law enforcement in general knows I have their back day in and day out.
Thank you. What's the question? What do you think the greatest challenge for the White County Sheriff's Office is, and how do you plan to attack that?
Not currently, but in the past, the greatest challenge for the White County Sheriff's Office has been the jail. It's really frustrating to go out and get people, criminals, arrest them for domestic battery, DWIs, criminal narcotic offenses, and not have anywhere to take them. It's frustrating when the judge puts a 10-day hold on someone and you have to carry them over to jail and they refuse to hold them. Well, that's one of the pressing things. The other things is the drug problem in White County is getting out of hand. And we've significantly reduced that in Baltimore by simply proactive policing. I believe that'll work countywide. We need to keep it, get the jail open, keep it open, fully maintain it, and get to taking the fight to the drug folks and folks trying to commit crimes in this county.
Okay, thank you. Sam, we'll start with you on this question. And it's been alluded several times as far as staffing. You know, Sheriff Miller mentioned staff, you mentioned staff. As you know, Lake County is the second largest county out of the 75 counties in Arkansas. I've heard, I haven't verified myself, that the budget is $8 million for the sheriff's department, as well as you have over 100 employees. Is that enough money for the employees? And if not, being under the quote-unquote appropriation, I mean, it's kind of like you have this group that says, we're going to give you this much money, and you've got to operate within that. Is that doable, or what's already in place, or you need more? How are you going to affect that? And that's kind of a loaded question, so we might take a little bit more than a couple of minutes on that, so if you would, then elaborate.
He gave me 30, just so you know. No, so, I mean, a nuanced question deserves a nuanced answer. The reality is it enough money? No, it's not. It's like asking, do our teachers get enough money? No, they don't. But given the different roles that different people have, you've got to learn to work within the budgets that you're given. The quorum court, the relationship between the sheriff's office and the quorum court has to be sacrosanct. It has to. The quorum court, the county judge, the JPs, they have a bigger perspective to look at than just the sheriff's office. And so naturally they're going to have different priorities and different things that they need to think through, different things that balance out one issue over another. And so maintaining that relationship is essential. And at the end of the day, it's their role to give that budget, right? So just getting mad at them isn't gonna help anything. So there's got to be coordination and good communication with the quorum court to let them know the priorities that are out there, right? To let them know that our deputies don't have the things that they need. I am going to always, I mean, school teachers and law enforcement, I'm always going to say that they need a raise, always. I think it's ridiculous for anybody to act like that's not the case. They're doing essential work, and so we've got to do that. But that being said, the different tack I will take, and I mentioned it earlier, is grant writing. I have no desire to tax the people of White County any more than they are. But right now, you have federal and private grants that are out there that we're just not pursuing. Searcy PD in the last 2 years has gotten $1.3 million in grants. $1.3 million in grants. That income from tax money is not from anybody around here, but they got resources, they've got positions funded, they have equipment that they wouldn't have had otherwise. We've got to start going after that. And I've already talked to a grant writing professional who is absolutely on board to help me start doing that day one. We do not need a bigger tax burden in White County, right? I'm just like y'all. I like my coffee black and my tea in the harbor. I don't do more taxes, but we do need to find ways, and there are innovative ways to get that done.
But do you think the staffing is adequate?
Well, again, that's a nuanced question, because is the staffing allotment adequate? Yes, but we're not meeting that. I mean, it's like the jail. And Sheriff Miller had said, you know, the 6 deputies that are out there. It's very rarely 6 deputies that are out there, because you have people that are calling off. You have people who aren't able to make it in for one reason or another. At the jail, it's even more so. And so, yes, if you fully staffed it, it would be closer to that appropriate. But at the same time, we haven't fully staffed it in years.
Okay. All right.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the citizens of White County are already taxed and are already paying for a service that they're not getting. I think there's plenty of money allotted. I'm not sure that there's the people resources available, like the sheriff said, where, you know, it's good officers are hard to come by. We need more officers, and if 6 is enough, we need 7. You know, and we also need to be working with the municipalities in the county, using their resources. You know, if there's a crime happening a mile outside of Baltimore, and I've got 2 officers sitting at the highway department, and there's guys stabbing people out there, and the county's 8 minutes away. Law and order needs to respond instead of being told to stand down. I don't think we need more money. I think the pay needs to be increased, but I think the money's available.
We do operate off of about an $8 million budget. That revenue comes in from several different streams, tax dollars, various other forms of revenue that come in, some of which are earmarked, some of which are not. You know, I've heard that the jail's been closed for 2 years, and I can tell you that's absolutely 100% not the case. Our jail's been open every single day. I don't know about you. Maybe you were exempt from the last 2 years of COVID and all the issues surrounding that. Hopefully you were, but I know that you weren't, and I know it affected your lives. I know it affected the way you operated. I know it affected the things that you were able to do and weren't able to do. Much the same with the jail. But the jail was never closed. The jail operated the entire time. We use our revenue to the best that we can for our citizens in White County. One of the things that I did when I took office was to gather with the chiefs and go into kind of what the fire department model uses, and that's called mutual aid. We gathered together, we all signed a mutual aid agreement that gave mutual aid not with just the county to the city, or the city to the county, but the county to the city, and the city to the city, and back and forth across this county, so that when we do have something happening a mile outside the city limits, that mutual aid says, yes, you can go, you can help. You have the same authority as a deputy. You have the same responsibility as a law enforcement officer. And we use that regularly. It's not, hey, there's your city limit sign, don't stop. But I think that as citizens of cities, you don't want me coming and telling you, you don't need a police chief because I'm just going to take over as the sheriff. I don't think that's a good policy. I think that there's a reason why we have city police departments to meet the needs of the city and the county sheriff's office to meet the needs of all the county. 100 employees is never enough, you know, but we do have to look at not only, okay, we have $8 million this year, so let's go hire a whole bunch of people, and then if revenue streams fall off next year, sorry, you and you and you, I've got to terminate you because I don't have the revenue streams to support your salary. So we have to look at being fiscally responsible and looking at those reoccurring expenses in our budgets to make sure that a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we can still meet those expenses, we can still meet those costs, and we can still provide that service.
Thank you. I think we start with you on this one. I'm going to go ahead and do something kind of strange here. I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to skip to the next one to give you time to think about this one. It's kind of a deep thought question and everything. I don't think it needs to be a quick answer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you were elected to the position of being White County Sheriff, what one item do you wish to accomplish within the next 4 years, because now the sheriff department in Arkansas is terminated for 4 years. If you feel that you would not be able to complete that in your tenure, that would be considered a failure. So think about that question. I'm going to come back to that one. We've had a lot of comments about the jail. Larry, we'll start with you on this one. What condition is the jail in, and how are you planning on making it better?
Well, I think right now the jail's in pretty good condition. It's accepting everybody that comes over there, as far as my knowledge. But for the last couple of years, I guess closed is the wrong terminology. Asking if you will take this guy with felony charges or not, it's closed. If you take him over there and they won't take him. If a judge signs a contempt of court 10-day hold, you carry him over there and they say we're not holding him. That's closed to me. I lost my train of thought.
Well, what is the condition to make it closed? Why are you being turned away?
Well, why we were being turned away then is because, I guess, of COVID restrictions. We can go over there And, they have this list of questions that if you answered, you've been around somebody in 10 days with fever, you had to go to the hospital and get jail fit before they would take it, or they would just flat deny to hold somebody. And 1241-503 of the Arkansas statute says that you will detain in the jail anyone legally arrested within the municipalities or county that you work in as the sheriff.
Okay. With the condition itself, I was on a chamber tour probably 4 years ago, pre-COVID. Is the condition itself, I think there were some days that were closed to the chamber members that went through the program at that time.
Right.
So physically, is the condition of the jail,
I think physically it's in great shape, yes.
it can handle more than, you
Yes.
said, 306 is what,
It's
is
a
more?
328 bed facility.
I was thinking more around 400, but
Okay, all right,
whatever.
that's one down to Sheriff Miller.
So we've maintained the jail now. It's kind of hard to believe we've been out there for 16 years, but we've maintained it, we've updated it, we've added to it, and in perfect numbers, we can hold 368 people. That's the right number of male and female inmates. We classification system based on behavior so that we put them in groups together or in singles cells as behavior classification follows the national thing. There's not been a single time in the 16 years that we've been in that jail that the criminal detention review facility has found any negative marks or has written us up for anything. And so that continues all the way up through now. Just like the statute that Chief House mentioned that mandates that we have a jail, it also gives the authority to the sheriff to manage that jail and to manage the inmate population. One of the things that we made a decision about it daily during the pandemic, during daily and weekly phone calls with our attorneys and with the Department of Health and with the Governor's Office and with the Department of Corrections was how to quarantine, how to separate, and how to manage the inmates in the jail to limit COVID. And how did we do that? We made sure that we took felonies. We made sure that we took violent misdemeanors. We made sure that if somebody came to jail for failure to appear on a seatbelt ticket, we cited them in, we cited them out, so that we could maintain our jail and maintain this ever-changing pandemic that we had, and we accomplished that successfully.
If I can go ahead and add to that, can you allude to anything what Sheriff or Police Chief House has mentioned as far as criminals being not detained there or being turned away?
We had a COVID screening, much like you saw in many places you went to determine whether they possibly had been exposed to COVID. And if they had exposures or they had symptoms of COVID, we did have to go have a COVID test done so that we could house those inmates appropriately. If it was a misdemeanor, nonviolent, we did restrict those from coming into the jail. If it was a violent misdemeanor, a domestic battery, a DWI, a felony, we took those inmates, we separated them. And let's talk about one more thing. Let's talk about the fact that for several months, the state took no prisoners that were state inmates in our facility. So not only do we have to manage local inmates that were coming in, we were stuck with a large state inmate population that we had to manage as well and have room for.
Yeah, so, I mean, they've both already addressed the issue of the status of the jail physically, and I don't have any reason to question that. But I do think this is a great point to just point out some differences. So I would ask you, and Greg, you can do this, go talk to the local municipalities about how many Class Y felonies they've had over the last 2 years that have been turned down. Go talk to Judge Zonia, go talk to Belmont, go talk to BB. I had a police chief look me in the face and said, jail policies are compromising my officers. And I said, that's a heavy thing to say. So explain it. And he said, if we arrest them for distributing meth, they make it back to our town before we do, right? because the jail won't take them, and they know that. So now they're like, what, you're gonna take me to jail? And it's a joke, right? I get it that the jail has been open, and that's a recent development. But the reality is, from my perspective, and this is where I think you have an opportunity to see differences between candidates. If I'm sheriff and you commit a crime, you're running some risks at that point. And one of those risks is you may get COVID or something else at the jail. Now, I'm absolutely all for getting people the medical help that they need. Everybody needs to be treated as an image and bearer of God with complete respect. So I'm not talking about doing anything harmful to people, but I'm not going to compromise the safety of White County citizens. I mean, think about this. You're a COVID screening test on a meth dealer. You know, if you've been exposed to COVID, we can't take you to jail. If you've been exposed to COVID, guess what? Not too many meth dealers said they were. Or every meth dealer had been exposed to COVID. If you can't ask criminals for the truth with the consequences that hinge on it, you're not going to get the real answer. And so I do think this is an opportunity just to see the differences between candidates. I recognize that there are risks. I recognize that there are risks, but those are risks that the criminal ran when they committed the crime. And so we're going to hold them to it.
I want to divert a little bit, because in your response, I feel like I have a, because Sheriff Miller is currently in that position, and he disagrees with that statement, or he's shaking his head no. So if you want to allude to that, sure.
We keep daily pod sheets, daily inmate, and most of you have it on your phone probably already. You can look and see. It's real simple. If somebody was brought in on a Class Y felony, we screened them. If they needed a COVID test, they got a COVID test. That didn't mean we refused them. That simply did not happen.
Okay. We'll keep you with the mic. Now we'll go back to the other question that I wanted y'all to think about. If elected to the position, what item do you wish to accomplish in the next 4 years? And if you don't accomplish that, would look negatively or consider to get that on your part?
So continuing along the line that we've been doing with upgrading technology, that's a big thing. The computer systems that we've been working on, so that takes getting network stuff in place, getting software up to where it ought to be, going and seeing these other agencies that have been doing the trial programs and making sure. One thing that I would like to accomplish as a physical asset for the sheriff's office, and that we're making steps towards, is our own firearms training center. Somewhere that we can do our lethal firearms training, but something that we can also do our non-lethal or less lethal firearms training, that we've expanded what the capabilities that we have there. And that's going to take some time, that's going to take resources, that's going to take a lot of planning. We've been fortunate that the city of Searcy has always allowed us access to their firearms training center. But it's time to move on. It's time that we're a big enough department that we move on from that to have our own firearms resource training center for White County. And that's, if you want one thing, that's one thing that I hope that we accomplish in the next term.
Okay. Just to go ahead and clarify the question then. So in 4 years, if you don't get that accomplished.
I'm going to run again.
Okay. Didn't say you had a chance to drop out. I'm just saying they look negative. I believe Sam is next on that question. He was trying to skip himself.
That's all right. That's all right. So this is actually the easiest question I've had all morning or all afternoon. If I do not create a leadership environment where young leaders can thrive, I failed. And I don't need to run again. The reality is our deputies are working day in and day out, putting their lives on the line. We need to have organic leadership within that group so that 4 years, 8 years from now, whenever, you've got multiple solid options for sheriff. The reality is, in this scenario, as I'm going around the county, I'm hearing repeated stories about the environment within the upper echelon of the sheriff's office. I'm hearing stories, some of which I can verify and some of which I can't, but a deputy, the special response team handles the most sensitive, in dangerous situations out there in our county that deal with the most fragile of our people. And you had a deputy that showed up drunk to a call out. That's not okay. That put him, that put his teammates, that put the civilian he's there to protect and serve in danger. That's not okay. There are stories like that. I was called, as a civilian, a 13-year-old girl found walking on the side of the road, wouldn't say who her family was. And I said, well, you've got to call the sheriff's office. They're the relevant law enforcement authority. And they said, well, I went to 2 deputies at McDonald's over on Main Street in Searcy, and they said, good luck. You got to find her a house. And then we ended up getting them into the sheriff's office. And the deputies, once they were on it, did a great job from everything I know. But those are environmental things that have to change, and if I can't change those in 4 years, that's a failure.
If you're elected to position, one item do you wish to accomplish in the next 4 years? And if you don't accomplish that, to be considered a failure.
If I'm elected sheriff and in 4 years I have not reduced crime in this county, then I have failed. If I have not provided you with the service that you're paying for, I have failed. If I don't turn, for example, if I don't turn Red River Shores into Red River Oaks, then I have failed. If Blackjack Mountain's not one of the safest places in the county, then I have failed. And that's the only reason I'm running for sheriff, is to make this a safer, better community countywide to live and raise our families. And if I don't get that done in 4 years, I'll check out.
Okay? Sam, we'll start with you on this question. I get to jump, didn't I? I think I did. Okay. We'll start with you. We've talked a lot about equipment, what we need to do. What is the status of our equipment? How many vehicles do we have? How many are equipped with radar? I see them out shooting radar sometimes. I see that we've got, I don't know if I've seen any Crown Vics lately. It seems like they're all SUVs now, or you got some of the Dodge Chargers still and everything. So what is the basically synopsis of what we have?
Yeah, so great question, and obviously Sheriff Miller has an advantage in answering all this because I don't know how many vehicles and what they're equipped with inside, because I don't have access to those vehicles any more than you do. But I will tell you what I'm aware of is the deficiencies. I'm aware of that the nicest body armor that the sheriff's office has is what I work with 2 different civilian groups to get them, and that I mean, just to go back to the earlier question, to answer this one, as far as that leadership environment, you have a training environment where one deputy accidentally shot another one in the chest during training. And if it wasn't for those life-saving vests, you would have had a dead deputy at that point. That's not okay. And the training environment is not okay, but then the fact that it's a civilian group that brought in the bulletproof vest, that shouldn't be like that. And so there's absolutely equipment shortfalls. We've got good equipment. As you mentioned, there's several SUVs out there. I don't know the current inventory. I certainly don't know the number that are equipped with radar or anything like that. What I do know is the most vital piece of equipment is quality deputies, and we've got those. And we can build out from that. But making them a priority, equipping them, training them, to go out to protect the citizens of White County and protect the constitutional God-given rights of the citizens of White County has to be our top priority. That is the piece of equipment that we can't replace. We can get grants, we can get funding for the rest of it, but thank God we have the people that we have doing the day in and day out.
Kind of going along in with that, what would be your policy, or is it, I don't know if it's current policy or not, as far as the deputies required to live out in the county, or are they drive their vehicles home, or what's that about?
Yeah, again, I can't speak to the current policy. I don't know.
What would be your policy?
My policy on that would be that you've got to be within responding distance to White County. I mean, when White County, as you said, is 4,000 miles of road, second biggest geographic county in the state. It makes sense that you're going to have some people that might live out, near Independence County or something along those lines, or Cleveland County. And if we think about it, one of the major problems the sheriff's office has right now is slow response times. I've got a guy who's held someone at gunpoint for 2 hours up on Joy Mountain. that's unacceptable. But if you had a deputy that lived out there, then perhaps they could have responded quicker. So there's different efficiencies that we've got to look at, and nothing happens in a vacuum, right? So that policy is going to impact a lot of different things, but and certainly when you're looking at recruitment and retention, which is an issue, to be sure, then we want to be more inclusive than exclusive as far as where people live.
On the side note, I've seen Cleveland County Sheriff Carr, they live here in town, so I know they live in Searcy, but they police up that way, so. Larry? What's the question? We've talked a lot about the condition of the equipment.
Yeah.
What kind of equipment do we have, vehicles, equipment inside? I mean, it's been alluded to several times as far as computers. I previously had the Be a Hero, and officer showed us, me and my grandson, the computers on the car. It shows where every officer is at that point.
Right.
And then policy for vehicles going home and living out in the
Right,
county.
well, I can just speak on the sheriff. It's got, I'm pretty sure, good equipment. What we need is in-car computers, but more than that, I mean, that's a great tool that we had just recently, the city council let us get involved in the units, and they're invaluable. Also, I think we need communication. The radios need updating, programming, whatever, going to digital instead of dial-off. As far as the take-home on the vehicles, my officers, I got one that lives just outside of Beebe that takes his unit home. I believe they need take-home vehicles. I don't know what the current policy is at the sheriff's office, but I'm sure, I see a lot of them that take them home, but I don't know if they cannot take them home if they live outside the county or not.
So we do have about 70 marked patrol units, admin and CID units, and several specialized support vehicles for the sheriff's office. Every year we rotate out vehicles in our fleet. What you see when you see a marked patrol car going down the road is something that between the car, the radar, the emergency equipment, the radios, not just one system, two systems, the other equipment that's in the car is about a $45,000 investment per car. We keep those up. We try to keep the mileage reasonable. And when I say reasonable, I mean our deputies are putting around 30,000 miles a year per patrol officer on their car. So you can see how quickly that adds up. Obviously, the last 2 years, if you've gone to try to buy a car, you'll find out that the last 2 years in a row, we've ordered our cars in January, along in April. The vendor through the state bid says your car orders have been canceled. So we've found other methods, other things to take care of that, to make sure that we still have good equipment in the cars. They are allowed a reasonable distance to live and reasonable response from our office. One of the reasons why we allow them to take their cars home and live is so that when they come on duty, they immediately are able to respond to calls. And I think that's important. Just like you alluded to, seeing cars here, there's folks that drive cars home that live in White County that work in Sherwood, that work in Jacksonville, that work in Little Rock, all because as a incentive for our officers to be able to recruit them. That's one thing that we do.
Well, if you had something going on, let's say Northeast White County, and he was off duty, but he had the car there, is he allowed to respond to that?
They are allowed to respond. Yeah, do we see that just like today? We're watching the weather. We hope that it doesn't get bad. But if you have a scanner and you hear, when we start getting severe weather, we start getting tornadoes, you start hearing units check in service. I'm in service. I'm in service. I'm in service. That's not because we say, hey, you got to leave your family in the path of a storm and get out. That's because we have the deputies that are willing to say, hey, I'm in this area. I'm in service. I'm watching. I'll be the first to respond.
Okay. Appreciate it. That's all the questions I have, except for I'm going to ask them to go ahead and close with response. And naturally, I'm sure all three of them will ask for your vote. Is anybody in the audience that wishes to like to ask a question? Please raise your hand, I'll come to you with a mic. No way I've answered everybody's question, or they've answered everybody's question. Okay. Give your address so they know where to come get you.
So, in chapter 1 of my married life, I worked for a sheriff. My husband was state trooper in chapter 1. I watched him get out there with the guys all the time, and I love that. He is now the governor of Missouri. I can go look him up, Mike Carson. For Philip, what do you do now on the road? For you other two, what is your plan to work with? You know, Christ says a 2-hour thing on Joy Mountain. I mean, like, where's everyone at? I watched him get up, put the gun in the back of his pants, and run out the door to go help my husband on mutual aid that he had called in. And I was very impressed by that. And I just kind of always felt like my husband did end up becoming a pilot, but it was where he was, you had to work the road a lot. So I just kind of wonder what your take is on that.
First of all, she got an awesome helicopter pilot for a husband. He did a great job in that. But yes, actually that's probably a better question for my wife and each one of their wives. My wife will tell you that there's times, all hours of the day and night, my phone will ring, I'm out the door, hey babe, I'm gone, don't know when I'll be back, but I'll be back as soon as I can. I routinely get out and work with our officers, ride with our deputies, respond to different things. You know, just recently, unfortunately, I was out with our officers assisting them, 11 o'clock at night having to go do a death notification. That's just part of the job. You know, when you take this job, it's 24/7, and that's part of it. And I know that these other two candidates will probably tell you the same thing, and I think that as citizens, you should expect that out of whomever is your sheriff.
Either one want to respond?
It's not a response. I just concur. Being sheriff's a 24-hour job. And so it's important that the sheriff be available to do that. And so I wholeheartedly agree that you have every right to expect that. As far as getting out with them, absolutely. You know, to create that leadership environment, you can't do that from your desk. You have to get out. You've got to roll out. You've got to set the standards high, and then hold people accountable to those standards. And so it's absolutely essential, not just that you go out with them consistently, but that you, when you're not out with them, you're available for them to come meet you out of town or anything like that.
I would like to concur with everything that Sheriff Philip Miller said, and Sam too. One of the things I would like to add is, fortunately, I have an understanding family. Balnall pays me for 40 hours a week, and they get double that, if not more. Sitting around Saturday watching something on A&E or whatever it is she likes to watch, cooking or whatever, I get up and go to work. I'm serious, passionate about it. I got a strong desire to do it, and I don't want to miss anything, so I spend a lot of time doing it. Go out at night on the weekends and work with my officers. It's just it's a quality thing. Thank you. Good question, Bobby.
Anybody else have a question? Michelle Moore.
So I live out on a rural road, and we have a lot of tractors and things that, you know, farmers have to get here and there. I have called the sheriff's department several times and asked for patrol, because I have vehicles that do 65, 70, and a 35. I have an 18-wheeler that does 60, 65, and I can't get anyone. So, would that be a priority?
I'll go first on that. Yes, ma'am, that is a priority. That's proactive policing. That's being out and being seen in the community. In other words, that's doing what you're paying for. And that's kind of what we do at Ball Knob. Now, granted, Ball Knob is not even a tenth the size of White County, but White County has a lot more resources available. If you can't get a deputy out there, you'll get me. We'll slow them down. And another thing I want to say is you call and you don't get your service, you got my phone numbers on this little card right here. And I'll answer.
If elected, he'll change it. No, please.
So here's the deal. Absolutely, it needs to be a priority, not just your situation, but situations like that throughout the county. One of the reasons why you have situations like that is because of the inefficiencies of managing resources. When you don't have computers in the car, you then, the deputy, when they interact with the public, now has to drive back to the sheriff's office and write it up. And so when you're saying we've got 4 or 6 deputies, you actually don't have that many in the county that are actually working because somebody's back at the house writing it up. You see what I mean? And so that's what's led to 2-hour response times. You know, I was talking to a gentleman down in Floyd, and he found somebody stealing his 4-wheeler and held him at gunpoint, called 911, and stayed there for an hour and 15 minutes. And then finally was just, and this is an elderly man, hour and 15 minutes holding somebody at gunpoint, and finally just said, you know what, forget it, just give me your driver's license. And the guy gave him the fake driver's license, and he's gone, right? When you're out going through the county like we are, these are the stories that you hear. The Joy Mountain situation, that could have been a absolute disaster. You had an elderly man who was holding somebody at gunpoint for 2 hours. 45 minutes in, the guy tried to rush him, and he put a round into the ground, which I don't know how many White County citizens who are armed would put that round into the ground. It's skewed, right? Most people would have put that round center mass. Praise God that didn't happen, and when that intruder saw that he meant business, he got back down and waited 2 hours. I've been talking to people over on Blue Hole Road about the exact same thing. They can't get a response out there, and it's not a malicious thing. Nobody's not wanting to help you. It's just that when you have limited resources, if you're not using them efficiently, there are real world consequences to that, and that's what you're talking about. And that would absolutely be a priority to change that.
I enjoy getting calls, letting me know when we're doing good and when we're doing bad. I've had the same cell phone number since 1994. It's printed on every card that I have, and I encourage you to use that. One thing I find often with these kind of complaints, and one of the pieces of technology that we do have, is GPS trackers in our cars, so we know where our cars are. We know how many times they've been in the location. And I also have talked to people in Blue Hole Road and heard, we don't ever see a deputy. We don't have a deputy. Encouraged them to come up, showed them, look, in the last 10 days, 150 times a deputy car has hit within 150 yards of your house. They weren't out here. I don't know how to respond to that. I do know that if I do get a call and somebody says, hey, I've asked the deputy, I can't go around here, I find that they haven't been, you can bet that that's going to be addressed. But it's also going to be looked at, and when we do see that, hey, I hadn't seen a deputy car, and we see that there has been deputy cars out there by our tracking system, I appreciate the phone call. Say, hey, I know you say they've been out there, I hadn't seen them. Let us talk about when's a better time for them to be out there. Is it something that's going on every morning at 7 a.m.? Is it something that's going on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or is it 24/7? It's a great big huge county. We do work all over the county. We have officers out working 24/7. And, I think that's important for me to hear those things and say, yes, you are right. There hadn't been somebody in your area working like they should, or no, let's talk about this so you can see that there are deputies working in your area.
Thank you. I'm going to do one more question, and I'm going to let y'all close.
A little bit ago, the Searcy Board of Realtors helped with an auction for, I believe it was the White County Sheriff's Office. We did some donations or whatever. I was just wondering, I guess that was for equipment and resources. I guess my question is what is needed? What do the guys who go out every day, what is needed besides computers and cars? I mean, do they have vests? Do they have everything they need? Do the guys and ladies on the ground have what they need?
Sure, good question. You know, we were approached by some great citizens in the county and in the city that said, hey, what's something we can do for you? You know, what's something that you need? We have a special response team made up of 10 of our officers who volunteered to say, hey, most dangerous job in the place, and I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to serve. And they're equipped with special body armor that protects even above and beyond what all of our officers have. And that was the choice that we made. Hey, there's some newer, more efficient equipment out there for them to do their job, and that was where those auction proceeds went to. You know, we always keep our officers in the equipment they need. Body armor is dated for every 5 years. We rotate that body armor out. We've written grants in the past for that. Since I've took office, I've worked with some of our other administrative staff so that they learn the process of writing grants, and they've been successful in writing grants that helped us buy that body armor and that sort of thing. Our deputies do not go without that equipment. They don't go without the equipment that they need to do their job daily. But we are thankful when we have community involvement that says, hey, what's something special? What's something extra that you need? And that was a great opportunity to reinvest back into our folks that are willing to step up and not only do the job they do every day that's dangerous enough, but accept the other tasks on top of that.
So, the great citizen you was talking about to me, so thank you. Yeah, I was working with a group called Searcy Freedom Fighters. We absolutely saw nationwide the things that were going on with law enforcement. We said, you know what we gotta do is make sure law enforcement knows that this town has their back. So we reached out, and I could show you the emails, reached out to the White County Sheriff's Office, and I personally said, what do you guys need? When body armor was the response, that's what we moved forward to do. The reality is, protecting our deputies, getting them the equipment that they need, is a passion that I've had long before this campaign started, and it's going to be something I have long after it's over, regardless of the outcome. Law enforcement has to know we have their back. They have to know that we support them. It is, you know, the craziness of our nation, the craziness of the world. We can't do anything about that, but we can secure White County. And we can, and the deputies that are out there, the good men and women of the White County Sheriff's Office and Searcy PD and BBPD, they are the ones who are going to make those changes. They are the ones who are going to keep us safe, and we have to let them know that we have their back. That's why we had that initiative, and Cargill Auctions was so helpful in how they went about, laying all that out. And I thank you guys for your donations, and it's saving lives. There's a lot of things you do, especially when you're an organization like this, and you wonder if it ever had impact. You can feel good about that one, because it had immediate impact. Lives were saved because of what you did in that particular instance. So, thank you.
Awesome, all good answers, stole everything I was gonna say. I think we need, what officers need is a can-do attitude, a positive outlook. Show up and show out kind of mentality. That's where there's a problem, go handle it. I think most officers are equipped. I mean, maybe not some smaller departments with all the safety stuff they need, guns, vehicles. We probably need some better training and some, a morale boost. That'd be the best thing for all the officers in, all over the county. Another good question.
Okay. Election day, as all of you may or may not know, there's just 3 Republican candidates running for sheriff. So this decision will be made on May 24th unless it runs into a runoff, and then a runoff is on June 21st. Early election starts next Monday, the 9th? Yeah, next Monday, the 9th. So you can vote early, and I'm going to go this way, starting with Larry going that way, to close us out, give us a conclusion, what you wish us to know, and ask for a vote, I guess.
All right.
Well, I certainly appreciate y'all allowing me to be here. I am honored, privileged to be a candidate for the White County Sheriff's Office. I'm winning already. I would like to work for you. Like I said, I'm passionate about it. I have the knowledge, I think, and the leadership skills to get the job done. I appreciate being here. I appreciate being on the ballot, and I certainly appreciate your confidence in your vote on May 9th through the 24th. Thank you very much.
So, like Larry said, I'm very thankful to be here. This is, citizen engagement is the fulcrum of our society. Getting people to make knowledgeable, informed decisions is something that is so critical to our democracy. And so things like this are incredibly important because it's what makes the difference. It's what gets the word out. And so thank y'all for hosting this. You know, as far as this election goes, it's pretty important. We've got a lot of stuff coming down the pike at us, and what you're faced with is the choice of if you're satisfied with where you're at, and if you are, you've got a choice to make. And if you're not, the choice is clear. And so those are the decisions that you've got to make. White County has a long history of illicit narcotics trade. No chapter in that's darker than one we're in right now. We've got the Drug Task Force doing an incredible job fighting that, but we've got to go on offense. We've got to take the fight to the cartels that are cartel that currently has a foothold in White County. We can't sit back. And so it's you've got a choice to make. Early voting starts next Monday. The primary is on the 24th. We've got to have leadership. We've got to have standards. We've got to have people holding the administration accountable. And so I appreciate the work that y'all are doing to that effect. So I appreciate your vote on May 24th or anytime before then, as long as it's after Monday.
Well, just like the other two candidates, I appreciate the opportunity to be up here today and visit with you and share with you. So what I can share with you is there's two options that we have. There is we can either make accusations or we can take action. As the sheriff for the past 3.5 years, that's what I've done is taken action. I've led our folks to where our drug task force is #1 in the entire state in the amount of drugs that we've taken off and the dollar value of drugs that we've taken off. Our interdiction officer, who's specially trained, been put out there specifically to do interdiction on the piece of highway that's already there, that runs from one side to the other. And currently, in his efforts, he's #4 in the entire nation in the interdiction officers for what he's out there doing. We've increased our patrol numbers. We've increased our specially trained detectives that work and fight every day for the children, for women, on our assault cases, our domestic battery cases, and some of the worst that I hope you never have to see, I hope you never have to encounter, but they do it every day. So for me, it's about action. It's about 3 things that I started this 4 years ago with, and that's community, commitment, and character. And I tell you what, my community means everything to me. From my community of my family, my community of my friends, my community in White County. My commitment to you is that I'll do it just like I have every day, and I'll go to work in mind with that community in mind. And finally, my character of doing what's right. You know, what's right's not always easy, what's easy's not always right. Having been there, having learned that there's restrictions, having learned how to work with others to make sure that the things happen that need to happen, and not just a bunch of bright ideas. Bright ideas are great, but you've got to be able to see them through. And I would appreciate your vote.
Let's give these guys a warm welcome, please. I want to thank First Community Bank for providing lunch today, and we are dismissed.
That's on my agenda. That's on my agenda.
You did? Which one?